little girl, daughter, sister, girlfriend, fiance, wife, cousin, mother, auntie, grandmother, great grandmother, elder, disappears, shattering, a family, a community, the world. There is something we can all do. Remember them.
Hello, my friends. Happy Wotan's evening, or as we like to say, go after. My friends, tonight we come to you Sporksmall Basvaret. Tonight's topic I'm really excited about for a multitude of reasons. We'll talk about it in just a second. But before I get started, as I always do, I first want to call out for any of you who may have insights and or questions driven by tonight's discussion. By all means, hit up the chat line. We have them open, so you're always welcome to use those. And or you can always email me at shaman@akuvhefnar.org. Or you could just do mark@akoutlaw.com. So either of those emails will work. And you can certainly ask your question. And remember, if I do make a show about it, by all means, where am I? I'm pointing. I got to figure. There you go. I can send you a free T-shirt that you can have, no strings attached, and so we'll get that shirt in the mail to you almost immediately. It's Alaska and it's cold, so hard to say, but it should get there soon. Tonight, I want to talk about rewriting your emotional recipes. Now, for those of you who may be familiar with it, it is a book I have published. It's on our website, author.akoutlaw.com, where you can actually purchase and download it and read through it. Half book, half workbook. You can work through it at your own pace. There's no grade, there's no score, there's no compare with anyone else. It's all about you and your growth and your understanding of who you are, where you are in this track. Now, rewriting your emotional recipes actually came to me first as a vision from my ancestors, as I began to probe my ancestors about understanding how I think and why in the middle of a thought does this thing occur? Does something occur? Does something out of the blue, something I wasn't expecting, why does that occur? And so the ancestors would take their time and they would explain it to me that I may understand exactly why and how this works. So with no further ado, let's talk about the 8 links within the Rewriting Your Emotional Recipes, or as we like to refer to it, RYER, model that the ancestors have provided for me. The first we're probably very familiar with, and that is our sensory input. Our sensory input brings in about 60% of our overall processing, as images and sounds and smells and tastes and touch. All of these become electric signals within the body, certainly arriving at the mind. It's super important that we recognize that there's a couple of factors that can alter this signal, can bend it just a little. The first one is, as we get older, of course, or if we have damage, or if there's some genetic disorder, we can always have issues with our eyesight. That alters the images coming in vision. Same thing with hearing, same thing with taste, same thing with smell. And ultimately, we could have calluses or other things that could damage our input of touch, right? So all of these things have the potential of altering our input, of altering the sensory input that our body brings in, that is then converted from out here to in here. All right, so we take an image, an event that's occurring, and we transport it through our eyeballs into bioelectricity in the body, signals that are transmitting now over our nervous system or the optic nerves for vision. Now, notice when we started, I said about 60% of your income, your input. 60% of your input comes from these sensory inputs. 40% comes from your imagination. And I know that number seems kind of high and you're kind of worried about it, but imagination is not a bad thing. It's when we take wisdom and we project it forward, right? So we're using a little premonition. We're kind of guessing what's going to happen based on information that we have within our minds already. So we have these preset experiences that are going to then provide us with the baseline that builds wisdom, and then that wisdom then projects forward into our sensory input as imagination. All right? That's a part of everyday life. Whether you're a very creative imagination or whether you're very simplistic in your imagination, nonetheless, it's happening. It's occurring. It's occurring whether we want it to or not. All right? But this is also the first stop in something that we have the potential of changing. We can alter our imagination. We can alter that by altering our wisdom. We alter our wisdom by the steps that we're about to go through. So understand that by changing our imagination, we change the input. By changing the input, we change the data at which will be translated over the next 7 steps. All right? So after an event or an experience leaves our first stop, the sensory input, after it leaves there, it's deposited into what my ancestors referred to as the emotional state. I call it the mood ring. It is a ring within our mind that everything must pass through, that measures, stores, and applies the current weather that we're living in, right? So if we are grumpy, we've woke up on the wrong side of the bed, we then get that mood to then set our energy that has been converted, right? So sensory input brings it in, eyeballs, ears, nose, mouth, fingertips, and skin all translate into energy. Energy is then passed through this mood ring that then applies our internal weather, how we're feeling. Are we in a good mood, bad mood, whatever, right? That energy is then applied to the signal. Now, when it leaves the mood ring, it drops into what my ancestors referred to as the well of the self. Now, the well of the self is a very, very large, very powerful piece that stores our virtues, values, and belief systems in. The visual my ancestors provided was simply rocks at the bottom of a water well. These rocks were deposited by anyone with whom we've issued any level of authority throughout our lifetime. So if we trusted, say, our parents when we were very young, we accepted some of their values, some of their virtues, and some of their beliefs. We stored those rocks in our well. Now, those rocks are simply rocks. They're not boulders, they're not mountains, they're simply rocks. So if we find in our lifetimes that this is not something that we want to be, this is not something we want to support or want to believe, we can extract that rock and pitch it, throw it to the side, right? We can also make the rock bigger if we so choose to, or make the rock smaller if we choose to. We can arrange them in different ways, placing higher value on some rocks and no value on others. So there's all types of maneuvering that we can do within our own mind based on our virtues, our values, and our belief systems, what we believe to be true. Now, one of the things that my ancestors warned me of when speaking of the well of the self is this idea that as energy transmits down through the well of the self, it has the potential of rubbing the side of the well, of kind of scraping alongside, because we're not living authentically. If we're living authentically and we're being our true self, our stream stays in the middle of the well. It's very clean. It stays right in the middle of the well. It hits the rocks it's supposed to, and it does what it's supposed to do. But when we're putting on masks and we're deciding to cast aside our own values at which to fit into some society, some club, some group, and we cast aside our own beliefs to do that, we now move the energy signal away from the center, away from the safe zone, against a wall. When we rub the wall, we create what my ancestors referred to as silt. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But the silt is essentially whenever we're living outside of our authentic self, we create silt. At the bottom of the well of the self resides the conversion. And this is where being human is really cool. This is the part of being human. What's going to happen to this energy as it reaches the bottom of the well of the self is it's going to be converted into biochemistry. We're going to recreate the signal of energy in the body's chemistry. The body can be chemical, or the body's chemistry is altered by hormones, by different chemistry that your body makes magically, we're going to call it for now, right? So if we feel happy, we may release certain hormones. If we feel sad, same thing. Angry, glad, whatever it is, we're going to release a certain amount of hormones. Now, those hormones are going to come out of the well of the self, and they are going to transport to another location. During their transport, our body's chemistry, additional chemistry now, can alter that energy, can alter that biochemistry. If, say, we have some type of mind-altering substances in our bodies, alcohol, whether it be illegal drugs or legal drugs for that matter, anything that's altering the signal, it's going to alter that chemistry. Your diet, another thing that's going to alter that chemistry. Where is your pH balance? And now we're talking physiology. That's the word I was looking for. We're going to alter our physiology. We're going to alter our bodies because we're adding some level of chemistry through whatever means into our body. Even modern medicine alters the body, alters the bloodstream with this chemistry. Okay? So this biochemistry that's created at the well of the self kind of transports itself up to this thing called the horn of feeling. Just before it gets deposited into the horn of feeling, it arrives at what my ancestors referred to as the recipe card. The recipe card is a card that you're going to build throughout your whole life. And it says, if I have this chemistry, if I see this composition of chemistry, it must mean this. Based on my recipe card of something I may have felt or seen back when I was 12 years old, I may have seen this chemical composition, and now my recipe card says, that means I'm happy. Okay? Then that's what it means. And so there's additional energies added into the chemistry as it's deposited into the horn of feeling. Now, the horn of feeling is one of those big concepts that kind of breaks down in a fairly easy way. Imagine, if you will, for a moment a drinking horn. Standard drinking horn, much used by the ancestors of the North. And in the drinking horn, about halfway up the drinking horn, about halfway, we have a hose that's coming in, right? And this hose deposits the biochemistry into the horn of feeling. Now, the biochemistry, as it enters the horn, it begins its conversion process back to energy. So we're now including, as it's converting back to energy, we're including all of this extra chemistry we've added to the package as it gets deposited into the horn of feeling. So our diet now affects our mood, our chemistry, whether it be legal or not, it affects it. Okay? Everything is going to affect that biochemical creation that arrives at the recipe card, which then further alters it before depositing it into the horn of feeling. Remember the silt we talked about back in the well of the self? We talked about scraping the walls and creating silt. Well, here's where that silt is going to come into its function. When we create silt, the silt is created converted into biochemistry as well. Unlike its regular biochemistry counterparts, it's heavier. It's like more like concrete. So as it comes into the horn, it's going to start filling up the horn from the bottom, right? So we're filling up the horn. Well, as I said, the energy coming in through the rest of the biochemistry is going to come in, and it's going to begin to expand because it's converting from chemistry back to energy. All right? So that conversion process is going to take up space. And if you can imagine in a visual, imagine having a glass or a mug of root beer. And when you pour the bottle of root beer into the mug, the foam comes up pretty fast, right? It comes up, and if you don't slow down your pour or do some other mechanics, you're going to spill over out of the mug of root beer. Everybody remember that? Okay. So, in the same way, the horn of feeling takes the biochemistry that we're handing it, and then it's going to expand. It's going to expand, and as it converts to energy, as it converts back to the bioelectricity that we technically started with. Understand that each of these conversion locations, it's converting exactly what it's given, not what we think it was given, what it's given. So if we've added a lot of energy through alcohol or some other drug, by the time this energy reaches the horn of feeling, it may look very differently than the energy that left the well of the self. It's going to look different. Why? Because we've added this other chemistry to it. We've diluted it and manipulated it and changed it. And so the energy or the chemistry that's arriving in the horn of feeling is purely what is at that point. Right? So all the chemistry of the body has changed this energy or this chemistry before being deposited. And then that deposit is what's converted back to energy. Well, there's a little space. It's right on top of the horn of feeling, and my ancestors call it thought space. I happen to be a little bit more savvy and refer to it as the cognitive space. The cognitive space is when you're overwhelmed by emotion, but yet you can still think your way through it. You can dissect things up, you can break things down, chunk it up, and address each of these challenges individually. You can think about it. You can still think. That's the cognitive space. Now, that cognitive space, depending on how you were raised and how your mind is trained, that cognitive space may be fairly thin, or it may be a little bit bigger. It's not too big, but nonetheless. If, for example, if you were to pour a lot of root beer into the horn of feeling very fast, and it filled and overflowed the horn, firstly and foremost, you need to understand that your cognitive space, your ability to think your way through this, has now been compromised. Whether it works or not depends on training and some other things. But most often, what we see is as this energy now spills over the rim of the horn of feeling, it falls into the parts of the mind that are not designed to handle this type of energy. So they simply fire off doing whatever they do. This is where we can witness from the outside individuals who experience panic attacks, anxiety attacks, maybe just pure excitement, not excitement in a good way, excitement in a not so good way. Their energy, it needs somewhere to go. So it's firing off these muscles, which could be increased heart rate, increased breathing or shallow breathing, sweaty, all of these things, okay? Many different things. All of these things fire when the horn fills over. So our mission, as reasonable people that we are, our mission is to not allow the horn to fill over. So we do one of two things. We either control the flow of biochemistry into the horn, we'll talk about that in a second, or we maintain the cognitive space. Now, for those of you who have ever poured root beer into a mug, and as it fills, and you lick your finger and you stick your finger in the foam, notice how the foam collapses in on itself. It reduces the foam, okay? Just lick your finger and stick it in the foam. It's in your glass, not in someone else's, but you get where I'm going with this. It reduces the foam. That's what we can do with our cognitive space, is when we can think about it, we put our finger, our wet finger now, into the foam, the expanding energy, and it tamps it down so it doesn't overflow. So what does that mean really functionally? Well, as we talked about in moments ago, where I said control the flow going into the horn, option A, and option A says that we simply deny those things that are overrunning us. Put them out of our mind. Just cast them aside. Take the energy out of the equation. Okay? Push it out there. This is a way we're controlling the flow into the horn of feeling. Okay? Maybe we can control the flow into the horn if we were to shut off our sensory input. Put our night mask on, put noise canceling earphones, and maybe a clothespin on the nose. Whatever it takes, we're shutting down as many sensory inputs as we can. What does this do? Well, this of course reduces the bandwidth necessary to process all that. Okay, so we're just closing everything down. We're casting aside those things that we don't need right now. We can come back to, push those aside, and now we're controlling the flow going into the horn of feeling. Option B, as we mentioned, is we use our cognitive thought to chunk these things up. Instead of trying to address the whole thing, we look at specific pieces of it. We can break it down, and that's one of the benefits of the cognitive space, is that it allows us to chunk it down. So as we leave properly, as the energy gets funneled out of the horn of feeling, the next stop is that stop that you have ultimate control of. And this is what my ancestors referred to as the me gate. Me gate. And that I get to decide. This is in many cases we see where generational hate has been passed down generation after generation. And I have the choice to say no. I don't want that belief. I don't want that energy. I don't want parts of that. Okay? We're going to push that to the side. When we do that, we're in control of the me gate. We're controlling how we feel, what we think, what we remember. We can do all of that. We can control all of that because we have ultimate control of the me gate. Now, without diving too much further into the me gate, one of the me gate's purposes is that beyond the me gate are memories. That part of our brain that holds experiences in its electrical form. Okay? It's going to hold on to it. It's going to hold on to it with pointers. And those pointers can be pointed towards emotional memories. They can be anything. You got to remember the mind, when we talk about memories, we're talking about little columns, if you will, of intellect scattered throughout your mind, little columns. And at the top of these columns is like light beams that create this matrix, if you will, interconnection between most of these data towers, intellect towers. That light beam that's moving through the tops of these towers is wisdom. And it's built by experiences. So the data that we're passing in through the me gate into our memories is establishing the experience necessary to build that matrix, to build those lines. Okay? Now, those lines have a mirror on them somewhere in the mind. And those lines reflect and become imagination. When they start thinking about forward things, we're talking about imagination. So we're taking wisdom, we're looking forward, it's imagination. Right? And remember, imagination comes back in, circles back, and comes in with sensory input. These 8 links were shown to me visually during many trances. And one of the things that it allowed me personally to recognize was my authority within this image, within this whole 8 links. I had a lot of authority. I could change what I felt. I could change what I thought. I could change what overwhelmed me or underwhelmed me. I could manipulate. I had that power. Other things in life, the triggers that we run into in our lives, those may have powers too, and we need to recognize those at where they are arriving. Where are they coming from? Are they coming from some of our virtues, values, and belief systems? Self-righteousness that is in the well of the self. Are we living authentically, or have we shifted our column of light from the mood ring down to the conversion process? Have we shifted that light to where we're scrubbing now the walls of the well of the self, building miles and miles and deep ponds of silt for our horn of feeling? These are all concepts, but they're all visual. And if you think about each experience that we have in this life, you can certainly get from A to B. So I encourage you, if you have any questions, by all means, feel free to email me. You've got the email addresses. And check out the book, Rewriting Your Emotional Recipes. It's available for purchase and download through my website at author.akoutlaw.com. There you can navigate out to Kobo and get yourself a copy. Read through it. Read through the text, and then work on those things that you think where some of your energy may be getting hung up along the way. So a great opportunity for you to do some of that self-work that you've been wanting. All right? I hope this helps. I hope the book helps. I hope this talk about how this all kind of works together has helped. And if so, drop a question, drop a comment. By all means, hit us up at our website. You can start at my website, author.akoutlaw.com. There you can get to any of the other websites, but you can also find my email address and drop me an email. I'd love to open a dialogue with you and discuss whatever you need to help you reach that next rung in the ladder of your evolution. All right? So, I wish you the very best. Wootens Eve. I will see you again tomorrow for those of you who join us, bright and early Alaska time, as we talk about FourSevens Decals and the morning illumination. So hopefully I will see you there tomorrow. We will be talking about Thor and strength. So be sure to join us for that 7 a.m. Alaska time. My friends, I wish you a very good Wootens Eve, and we will see you again tomorrow, where we will embrace the power of Thor.
You've been watching FourSevens Belly Snake, a special production of Whispers of the Norse, brought to you by the Alaska Ulf Hefnar in South Central Alaska. Guidance and wisdom, courtesy of an ancient Celtic Norse shaman. Thank you so much for joining us today.
FourSevens. Una. Hjälp oss med. Magnify. Tu för åg. Kaliot.
If what we've touched today hits something raw for you, you don't have to carry it alone. We offer a sliding scale spiritual guidance with sessions outside normal business hours. Visit akolfhefnar.org/guidance to book a free discovery session.